You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, brought to you by Jacob Franklin, brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Jacob, you don't need to hide. We all love you right here. All right, tons of comments to get to already, but let's first talk about the elephant in the room. Well, not the elephant in the room. That implies something negative. Arizona, I thought, was going to lose this game in the second half when San Diego State went on that run, went up 3, and it looked like everything was dissolving. And then Arizona comes back and they hit them with that patented Arizona run and never really looked back. And before long, Arizona was up 10 there, John Schuster.
Arizona should send San Diego State a Christmas card. This is one of those, if X, Y, Z, H, and Q happen, then we're talking about how things didn't go well for the team, yada, 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 which of course means just the opposite. Arizona gets players in foul trouble. They score, I think, on one bucket in the fast break, a Henderson three-pointer in the second half. San Diego State more or less controls tempo. Is a veteran team that gets back into the game after Arizona squanders a big lead. And the Cats still managed 87 in this game. And in the last 10 minutes, last 8 minutes at least, 8 to 10 minutes, I think we're mostly in control. This was a really good performance for the U of A, even though it didn't look good. And at times it was frustrating. This San Diego State scouting report game plan was exactly how teams with this type of talent are going to face Arizona, with this type of physicality. If they can limit turnovers, and they can keep the Cats in front of them and hold off those fast breaks, then they think they have an opportunity, and they're going to try to be as physical as possible and beat Arizona up. And the Cats were up for the challenge, and up for the challenge at times with some players who you wouldn't necessarily expect in some key moments here and there. Did some good things that allowed Arizona to solidify this. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ramey, rightfully so.
He's good.
He's an outstanding addition to what Arizona needs. Kriisa was phenomenal tonight,
especially in the second half, especially.
But and Ballo and Tabellas were very good as well. Tabellas especially in the first half. In the second half, not as much. In the first half, Tabellas was very impressive. He's his own TV channel to watch away from the ball. Sure. His fundamentals and ability to get into position and utilization of angles is something to behold. And it's a
very Gonzaga-esque thing.
It's oftentimes almost as interesting as what's going on with everybody else on the floor. He's really interesting to watch. But while those people should be discussed, Visar had some key minutes in difficult circumstances tonight, and there were a couple other guys. Henderson was tough, and I thought Arizona kind of found a way to obviously just get it done, and their ability to battle as well as they did and turn the tide in a game that was really looking weird. In a game they looked like they had control. And then to me, to some degree, it almost felt like Tommy Lloyd was playing for tomorrow. Right. It was time to go to the bench. It was try to, if you're in control and you got this thing at arm's length, San Diego State struggling from the field. Maybe it's going to be 10 to 12 the whole game. Rest the starters a little bit because you got another tough game tomorrow, and the team across from you played its own extraordinarily energy expending matchup. But then Boswell comes into the game, and I'm not blaming Boswell here per se. He had a tough night, and San Diego State jumped on that. And then it took Arizona a while to get back into stride. Late in the first half, it obviously got away from them, and then early in the second half, it did as well. But Arizona was able to right the ship and do a lot of things necessary, and in ways that they haven't usually won before. They won with defense, and they won playing in the half court. And that's not supposed to be the recipe for Arizona's success, but they were successful, and I thought pretty darn impressive tonight.
Okay, Jacob Franklin says I need to turn my speakers down a tad. Okay, let's do that. Is this better, Jacob Franklin? All right, Jacob Franklin says it's better. Okay,
it may be hard to tell because I think I'm echoing out of your headphones.
Okay, now let's talk about Courtney Ramey, obviously. That you talk about a absolutely fantastic addition across the board. You watch him, first of all, he's heady with the ball. You never get the sense that he's going to turn the ball over. He can shoot the three. He can get to the basket. Oh, yeah, by the way, he can also defend as well. I mean, he's been kind of if you were to draw up kind of a perfect addition for what this team needed, Courtney Ramey would kind of be that template.
Absolutely. He's a heck of an addition, and the ability to, the willingness to take big shots, the ability to make them is a nice combination. And we've talked before about how Tabellis and Ballo complement each other on the inside. Now there's a possibility that Kriisa and Ramey complement each other on the perimeter, and two guys who are willing to take big shots makes things a little bit more difficult for already strained defenses.
Right. All right. Now let's talk about Oumar Ballo. He is, and our guy Matt Muehlbach we were texting a little bit during the game, and he said, this kid is so much better than I could have ever thought that he was going to be. And man, you talk about hitting the nail on the head right there. This is he is a problem on a variety of different fronts right there. First of all, when he gets the ball and he takes his time, he generally kind of maneuvers his way to the basket where he gets a dunk. Or, and he's also shown too, he's got a little bit of a left-handed finish. He's got a right-handed finish as well. There's a lot to like about him. And again, he feels like this is going to be about a 15-9, 16-9 type guy game in and game out.
And if you get 16-9 from both of your inside players, that's tough to deal with. And then you get good performances from the perimeter as well. But Arizona's big man coaching staff needs a heck of a lot of credit for the footwork that Tabellis and Ballo have implemented during the offseason. And in addition to that, whatever their physical regiment is in the early stages, obviously paying dividends. So because of the way that they have been able to improve, you look at the other big guys on this roster, and again, we talked about this earlier on. At some point, you're gonna get into a foul trouble situation, or someone's gonna have an off night or something, and then you're hoping somebody off the bench can provide you with competence. And Arizona got competence in its bench play tonight, in addition to very good play from the starters. And that's a good recipe. This was a grinder game against a team that I think's pretty good.
Right. I agree with that.
I think San Diego State can win a game in the tournament. If things break their way, they may be a second weekend team, but they're the type of team that I'm really interested to see, and I'm glad this matchup played out the way it is. I'm interested to see how well they play Arkansas tomorrow. And Arkansas is another team that expended a lot of energy.
Right.
If San Diego State is competitive against Arkansas tomorrow, who we think is a grade A physical athletic college basketball team that can be a lot of problems for a lot of people and make a deep tournament run, then maybe that bodes well for what we saw tonight. And maybe San Diego State isn't a team that is, sort of a facade as the season moves along, and perhaps this isn't as good a win as I feel like it is right now. So I am curious about what plays out tomorrow. But I like what I saw from Arizona and the way they gutted through this one and still won convincingly.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that Arizona, you got to remember, with about 14 minutes left, Arizona was down 3. And they, by the end of the game, they're up 20 again, and they just hit you with those runs. A guy made a really good point here, and I wanted to give John Schuster a little bit of credit. But first, got to pay the bills here. Four Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Now, you might say, Mike, I thought the Four Peaks were the U of A big men, which has essentially become 2 Peaks. We'll just call them the Peaks. But Four Peaks is also, again, the official brew of PHNX. Great stuff going on down there in Tempe. You can go down there, watch parties, root against ASU, root for the U of A, or you can also come down here to Tap and Bottle and watch Arizona, and you can back the A by drinking some of that great, delicious Four Peaks brew and OGs. All right, here's the deal. Breaking news. OGs has agreed to a new deal with PHNX. The terms of the agreement were not released at the time, but sources close to the two sides say they were immensely excited and looking forward to creating more great content between the two sides. As always, you can find them at your local dispensary. Must be 21 and up to enjoy. Again, OGs, check it out. I got some of those when I went up to Phoenix. Highly, highly recommend right there. All right, now we were talking about, Arizona's up-tempo style. I thought it was an interesting point you made about how Arizona, that the way that they get up-tempo is by passing the ball. And it's not through by a traditional outlet. It's by Kerr Kriisa many times getting the ball, sometimes at three-quarter court, and then just tossing it ahead to the running big man. It sounds simplistic, but you don't see a lot of teams that are able to actuate that.
No. And the way that Arizona, it's very interesting. Last night we talked about how on a perimeter shot, the guy guarding the person who took the shot is often the one who streaks down the floor after the rebound has been garnered by Arizona. Once they make sure that the rebound is in Arizona's possession and make sure that there isn't a reset on the offense because somebody got an offensive rebound, then they break down the field, or rather the floor, and usually get down court in a way that can be very problematic. They were very good at doing that in the first half, Tabellis especially. But tonight, Tabellis even did it from different spots on the floor, and he's really crafty about it. Kind of looks around, he did it off ball a little bit on occasion, and even from the inside. The play that's going to get a lot of rightful highlights, where Kriisa found him running and he tipped it in on the break, is a play where he was not he was kind of in the middle of almost closer to the inside, almost the circle area below the foul line, and still managed to break and get down the floor before San Diego State did. That's going to be the type of thing that Arizona is very effective on throughout the course of the year. However, I still think it's very important to note Arizona didn't do that at all in the second half. And I don't know if that was by design or because San Diego State specifically scouted and defended against it, which means that Arizona had to win this game offensively in the half court, and they were still able to do that.
Right, for sure. And I think they're going to be able to win games in a variety of ways here, because when you've got the peaks, the two peaks are going to be able to beat you up down low. I think they're going to be able to pretty much do this against almost any team. Now, there's going to be games, your Kentuckys, your Dukes, where, you've got a lot of really good big men up front. But Ballo and Tabellis right there, to me, are both going to be guys that you can kind of count on game in and game out. I'm curious to see, though, at that small forward position right here. And let's talk a little bit about Pelle Larsson. As the competition's gone up, I'm not going to say that he's been bad by any means, but he's kind of just been another dude out there. He's played some pretty good defense, no doubt about it, but he certainly hasn't stuck out the way that a guy like a Ramey has, or a guy, heck, even a Cedric Henderson or a Kriisa has. He's been he's been solid, he's been there, but he hasn't really stuck out, I think, the way that some people thought.
I don't think that's a problem.
No, I don't either.
Well, I think you do. It wouldn't have necessarily been, if it's nice and it provides another offensive benefit. If Larsson is a guy who, can put up 15 points a game, it gives Arizona a well-rounded attack. But I think Larsson had one of those deceptive lines where he was a stabilizing factor for Arizona on defense. I would be really curious to delve into the numbers a little bit deeper to see how effective the guy that he directly defended was in this matchup. And I'm guessing he wasn't particularly effective at all. I think Larsson did a really good job on the defensive end, to the point where he had one of those, he didn't have any number on the floor whatsoever, but was still important defensively. And it allowed Kriisa to have a good night on the offensive end, and Henderson to be solid, and, the other players to deliver double-figure performances. Larsson, I thought, did not play well last night. Tonight, I thought it was kind of stabilizing and didn't need to be a guy who put up numbers to be effective on the floor, especially on the defensive end.
Let's talk about Kerr Kriisa here, because, again, he's taken a lot of arrows, but he's been fantastic so far this season. You look especially in the second half right there. This was a guy who didn't shoot well in the first half. I think he was 1 of 6, but he had some great passes in that second half. He also came up big. The one thing about him too is that he does not lack for confidence. And I think we've seen a lot of guys there, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but we've seen a lot of guys who, when they start struggling, they start looking at the rim a little bit differently. He's going to still chuck it up right there. And if you can get these kind of performances from him against good teams, then you're going to be in a really good spot.
And this was one of those interesting games, and even Tabellis went through this a little bit, where there were points where it's like, oh man, San Diego State's game plan is just beat up Kriisa, and it was relatively effective in pockets. And it's like, oh boy, this is the type of game that's going to be a problem again. But Kriisa was able to work through it, stabilize things, and obviously performed exceptionally well tonight. I will say, with about 8 to 9 minutes to go, and I'm not saying that San Diego State's going to have enough to win this game, but it changed the entire complexion of the game. There were 2 calls that benefited Kriisa and went against San Diego State. There was an open steal in the midcourt that often leads to a fast break for the opposition, and there was a play where Kriisa was pretty clearly the guy who charged. It got called for a block.
Right.
Kriisa then went to the line and made 4 free throws and opened up the lead. That part helped, but if those calls go the other way, maybe that's a 4-point swing in favor of San Diego State, and this game's a little bit closer down the stretch. That is an aside, and it's certainly a nitpicky thing. This is about as tough as I think we've seen him against the style of competition that is potentially difficult for him on a regular basis. That kind of physical, athletic, constantly in your grill approach. And Kriisa was up to the challenge tonight, and it obviously is a good thing to see from a Wildcat perspective.
All right. Before we start looking ahead a little bit to next game, I want to give Cedric Henderson Jr. some more credit. He is, again, we've talked about it. Our good buddy Rob Lance even said that he's going to another guy that can give you some position flexibility. He can play the 3, he can play the 4. He's just got kind of, some guys just, again, and I'm not saying he's great, but some guys just have kind of a knack for finishing, for getting rebounds, for being around the ball. And he's that guy. And I think you're going to see a kind of a stat line throughout the season where he's going to probably be about 7 or 8 points, 3 or 4 rebounds, a couple assists, and he's probably going to play some pretty good defense. I think he's really carved out a nice little niche for himself.
You don't feel bad about him out there. So
At all.
And that's exactly what you want from a contributing bench player. And if he's the first guy off the bench, okay, so be it. That's fine. Frankly, if he's a starter, okay, so be it. He looks like he's kind of right on that fringe. And I think he's going to be a very instrumental player. He and Ramey have been really helpful in terms of Arizona being in a position where the transfer situation benefits them. They're not obviously replacing Matherin, replacing Terry, replacing Koloko. That's a tall order. But they have closed the gap a little bit. And along with that, Tabellis has gotten better. Ballo has gotten better. Kriisa has gotten better. And that's those 3. I think even Larson's better despite his line tonight. And again, I think Larson was very important on the defensive end of the floor this evening. So those guys give you depth and the ability to perform. And now if you look at, Ramey obviously is a player. Yeah. And you feel good about his upside.
We've had a couple people mention Mark. We've had a couple people mention Mark Lyons. Do you see any of that?
Sure. That's an interesting.
I don't hate that.
Neither do I. I was talking to somebody earlier today who made the Khalid Reeves reference, and I can't remember if last night. Refresh my memory, Mike. I think you and maybe Mulebach mentioned that as a distant comparison as well. Yeah. So if you're making, is Ramey Khalid Reeves? No, but if he's Mark Lyons, there ain't anything wrong with that either. Yeah. Especially if he can tone down the turnover element, which was sometimes a bit frustrating with Lyons. Lyons was often a feast or famine player, but when a big moment was there,
he was generally there for you.
He was generally there for you. And so if Ramey can curtail the turnover aspect of Mark Lyons with the big play nature of Mark Lyons, I have no problem with that comparison at all. So again, you're looking at 2 guys who have come into the program and benefit Arizona from a depth standpoint and from an ability to score standpoint on different parts of the floor. That's good. And when they come into the game, you're not like, oh, geez, here we go. Arizona's not that deep. And the performance of Vasar tonight, I thought, was a little bit more advanced than I expected.
He's a weird guy, because there's a lot of moments out there where, to quote our friend Kevin Woodman about young players looking to work on their coordination, he kind of looks like a praying mantis, where it's, where it just looks, but then there's also some moments where he'll block a shot or he'll get a rebound where he gets up, 3 feet in the air or something. And it's just like, whoa, I wasn't really expecting that. I didn't expect that to come along. There is something to him.
And again, it helps because it's natural for big guys to get into foul trouble. Ballo's going to pick up 2 fouls a game because he weighs 40 pounds more than his opposition.
Right.
And Tabellas tonight had a couple fouls like that as well, where he was either outmaneuvered or something on the defensive end, or the referee gave the other guy the benefit of the doubt, depending on how you want to look at that. So you're going to have a third guy off the bench who's competent. And if he's playing 15 minutes, I think maybe you're a little bit uncomfortable with that, but he can give you a good 5 to 8. Then, Arizona, you feel like they can weather the storm. And again, with the bench tonight, there were times where they actually extended the lead a little bit, which I thought was sort of interesting to see, and maybe a good sign for what the team's overall depth situation is, and the type of thing where maybe Arizona, again, with its style and with its depth, can wear teams down. And there's an eventuality that works into this, and perhaps San Diego State hit that tonight.
Ricky Garrett, the great Ricky Garrett, has made the point about my biggest concern is stupid turnovers that lead to 20-plus points. We're going to get to that in just a second. But let's say that we were talking about Mark Lyons. And let's say that you've got you started saying to yourself, I'd really like to go watch Mark Lyons play in like Scandinavia or wherever he's playing. I don't know. But you're like, I would have no clue how to get the tickets. I wouldn't even have the first idea where to get tickets. That's where Game Time comes in. If you're looking for tickets to sporting events in Scandinavia, or if you're looking for things locally as well, whether that's concerts, whether that's whatever you have, Game Time is where it's at. And you can get up to 60% off. Again, check it out. Buy your tickets through the link in the description. Again, it's for you great procrastinators out there. William Brad Alice would 100% like Game Time. So again, check it out, Game Time. And Tap and Bottle downtown, all the away game watch parties. We're going to be kicking those up for basketball here shortly. But again, a lot of people have come out for football. Great stuff. A lot of fun to be able to watch the games with like-minded U of A fans. And you've got 4 Peaks down there as well. So you can cheer on the Peaks while you drink a couple Peaks as well right there. So again, check it out. Tap and Bottle downtown and Game Time. Looking ahead to Creighton. If Arizona wins this game against Creighton, because did you watch any of the Creighton-Arkansas game, John Schuster?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it.
By the way, our
basketball game.
By the way, our guy Eric Musselman, I know he drives a lot of people the wrong way. It looks like he's going to get thrown out of every single game, but I do like watching him. But Creighton's good. You could tell Creighton's good. That was a good Arkansas
legit.
Creighton's very legit.
This is as good, and I know they've had good teams, but and they've been very solid. They look solid across them. Yeah, they look like a real force, and I love their offense. So I think, Mike, tomorrow you're going to have. I was suggesting to somebody else. I think, unfortunately, what's maybe going to happen tomorrow is that since both teams expended so much energy in this game, that there may be some sloppy elements to that one. But if both
it's an earlier start,
and it's an earlier start, if both teams were playing at where rest and potential fatigue wasn't the case, I wouldn't be convinced if 120 wins this game. I think they're both great on the offensive end, and I think it theoretically could be a field day. I like Arizona's depth, especially on the inside, but Creighton's big guy's good.
Well,
And
let's
their
talk about
backcourt's good too. They're well versed and well rounded.
Let's talk about Arthur Kaluma. Arthur Kaluma is one of the best big men in the country. This is going to be, I think, a real test for the U of A big men right there, because this is a guy that can get you 20 and 10 on a regular game, and we'll find out what exactly Arizona's guys can do. Now, again, both of these guys passed their test with flying colors because, again, San Diego State, if you were to look at this, the Maui Invitational, Cincinnati was a big step up from the Utah Techs of the world. San Diego State was clearly a step up from Cincinnati, and Creighton is clearly going to be a step up from San Diego State as well, which is clearly what you're going for. But that's going to be a fascinating game to be able to see just kind of the interior matchups between the peaks and what Creighton's looking to do.
Yeah, and one of your commenters just now mentioned that Creighton's big guy in terms of defense is really good without picking up fouls. And so he's going to be a legitimate test. So you have one interior guy who can pull you to the outside and then beat you off the dribble, and another guy who's a more traditional 7-footer who's somewhere in... He's a better version of Visar. He's not Ballo, and he doesn't have necessarily the mobility and the shiftiness that Tabellas has. He's somewhere in between, but he's excellent. He had 21 points tonight. That kid can play. And in the backcourt, they're really good as well. That was and I know Bill has spent a lot of time understandably focusing on Arkansas not being at full strength and being a real factor once the season progresses. I think we all believe that's the case. But Creighton was pretty damn good tonight. And I think Arizona's going to be in for a really interesting test. Although they both run very similar styles. Their offensive sets are great. And as a result, I think we may be in for a shootout. That game has a chance to be a blast, and I think Arizona's got a real chance to get the W.
All right, Chad McDonald says, again, our good friend Chad McDonald's from Bob Dobbs fame says he trusts in Ballo under any circumstances right there. And Chad McDonald's has been on the Ballo train.
What's the Ballo bandwagon? That's right. He pretty much drives that baby.
You hit the nail on the head, though, John Schuster, as many times as you do, which is hard because you have a very small head.
I really do. It requires a lot of aim.
Yes, you do, for sure. Schuster always had the smallest helmet when Little League or in Pop Warner football. But
a quick story, and then I'll let you get back to it. I have some compadres, shall we say, who do not have small heads.
Right.
So part of the entertainment factor is when they try on hats that don't fit, and then they give the hat to me, and it basically comes down below the nose. That's comedic visual entertainment right there. And I'm always happy to play the foible.
By the way, we have a special guest that's going to be joining us tomorrow on the post game. Our good friend Matt Muehlbach.
No way.
Yes, Matty said it would be his pleasure.
Man.
So yeah, no, we're looking forward to that one. Matt Muehlbach right there. So again, Mr. Triple Double himself. Okay, so all right. As far as Ballo, though, I want to go back to him again because I think Ballo is kind of going to be a real equalizer because how do I put this? There's going to be games when Arizona's shot isn't necessarily falling or they're turning the ball over. What he's been able to do, though, is every time down the court, essentially, he's been able to carve out his own space and he's taken his time. A lot of times, like especially last year, the game looked too quick for him. You could tell that it was a very much a concerted effort by this coaching staff to be able to get him in the spot where, all right, we're going to need you to be able to make some plays. And he's done that in a way that I didn't really think he was going to be able to do. I thought, to be honest with you, I'm not shocked by what Tabellas is doing, mainly because, I mean, Tabellas, he was 16-9 last year, 16-8. Ballo, though, to me, is the one that I really did not see happening.
One of the things that is fascinating in modern basketball, where everybody loves to shoot the threes, which is entertaining that I say that with such disdain, given that when I was screwing around on the hard court and usually the concrete, all I did was shoot and defend threes because it meant that I could run less. So I loved that kind of game. But it is fascinating in modern basketball that the number of teams that just don't go inside. Just pound it inside. And Arizona is going to be a problem against most of the teams it faces this year because of the simple size that it has underneath the basket. They will be, if Arizona isn't top 5 in 2-point field goals this year, I'm going to be shocked. And it's
Right,
because you can go to Tabellis and you can go to Ballo. And if you can go to Vasar, that helps as well. And just get something in a possession if everything else isn't working, especially against athletic teams like San Diego State. Let's say, and there are better athletic teams out there. Arkansas is better athletically on the wings. Houston's better athletically on the wings. Frankly, Oregon might be better athletically on the wings. And again, I think San Diego State's really good and a real problem. And
I agree.
I'm glad this game happened. And I'm glad Arizona handled it the way that it did. So this is not to disparage SDSU at all. I think they're going to have a very good year. There are going to be teams that they play this year who maybe don't score 40 points. Right. They're rough. They're bruisers. But I think it's fair to say that there are other teams out there who have more of a skill set and can match them or a little bit better athletically. So if Arizona has a problem against those of that eventual competition, then you can pound it inside and maybe you can draw a foul. And Tabellis is pretty good at the line. You'll want him to be better. Ballo's shooting about 67% from the foul line right now. You want that to be better. If you can get both of those closer to 75%, it limits the number of times you go down the floor with a wasted possession and sometimes can stem things when you're struggling from the perimeter.
Have I told you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX?
You haven't told me about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX, since last night when a Cincinnati player hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to screw up everybody's line because they logically took Arizona to cover the spread. But I have a feeling you're going to tell me about it right now.
I am going to. And our good friend Chad McDonald's talked about how he hit the under on this one as well. I would not have bet the under on this game, but, good for you, Mr. Chad. All right, here's the deal. New customers can put down $5 on any NBA game money line and get up to $200 in free plays if that team wins. Think of it this way. John Schuster said last year that bet against the Pistons every single game. They went on a 9-game winning streak. Here's what I'm going to ask for John Schuster from the postgame. Find a team, and again, doesn't need to be today. Find a team, though, that you would say bet against them each and every game, and we will keep that going. Will.
What sport?
Basketball, NBA.
NBA. Oh, okay. I'll, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'll look into it. Yeah. All right. That sounds very entertaining. We know exactly how this is going to go.
You can also boost your winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. What's the code word?
PHNX.
PHNX. Again, minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right. So what are we looking for then tomorrow against Creighton? What I'm looking for mainly, I'm very curious to see how Arizona's guards play. Mainly Kriisa. I think I got a pretty good idea on Courtney Ramey. I know that looks weird to say that, he's only played 2 games, but I got a pretty good feel on him. I'm curious as how Kriisa matches up with the Creighton guards. And I'm also very curious to see about how Arthur Kaluma goes against Oumar Ballo / Julius Tabellis.
Yeah, they have, with Kaluma and Nebhard, they've got 2 guys who athletically match up favorably with pretty much any team in the country. And it shows. And now, along with that, they've got other players they've got a 7-footer who's really skilled, and they've got complementary players who do good things within the system. So I think you can favorably say this is certainly the best Creighton team I've seen.
Yeah, for sure.
They look to me a lot like the model. Frankly, it's Arizona, Gonzaga, and Creighton. I think they're very similar. Just watching what I saw tonight, Creighton runs many similar sets. Their offense flows very well. They cut without the basketball. They're very unselfish. A lot of things that we hear about what Arizona does. I think this is going to be a really good matchup offensively. I think if you want to get into the boredom aspect of it, limiting second shot opportunities, I think, is important. But I'm also curious how effective, and this is kind of the next step in whatever we think Arizona is and whatever the concern elements may be. how good Arizona is against a team that likes to run as much as they do, and whether Arizona plays good transition defense as much as they cause transition problems for other teams' defenses. I think we're going to see a lot of up and down tomorrow. I think it's going to be an extraordinarily entertaining game.
Ricky Garrett, you make no apologies for anything. This chat is here for all of you. You are the community out here. You're the one that makes all of this go. You guys talk about what absolutely anything you want. You can make fun of us for all I care. And believe it or not,
a fish in a barrel topic.
There's a lot to make fun of. I don't know that I might have opened a Pandora's box right there. But I do want to end with the game is at 3 tomorrow, so we'll be on at about 5. I do want to have a little bit of fun, though, with my good friend Jacob Franklin, though, right now. Jacob was getting a little testy. Jacob, you can join if you want, or you can. All right, Jacob doesn't want to join. So here's what Jacob says. Jacob texts me because one of my favorite things to do is when ASU football is playing, I generally ask, does anybody have the ASU score? Because they're generally down.
I'm impressed that ASU can spell elite.
Yes, absolutely. So here's what Jacob says. Do you have got the ASU score for me? Believe it or not, I didn't have the ASU score for him. I quickly looked it up and saw that they were beating Grambling.
Oh, they hammered Grambling tonight. Yes, Mike, what was your response?
My response, I thought, was pretty good. By the way, the DraftKings Sportsbook app. My response, though, I thought was pretty good. I said, no. I said, I'm busy watching 2 top 25 teams right now.
That's a nice return. Boy, did you, man, you delivered. I'm not sure it was a knockout blow, but that was
the problem is I can't shot, Jacob. I have to go with body blows.
You have to go to the body blows. Yeah.
I got to go to the body blows because I'm not going to be able to reach the head, but take it for what
it does. Does Mr. Franklin believe that ASU football is going to win on Friday?
That's a great question, Jacob. Do you believe this? Jacob?
He's typing the response.
He's typing as we speak. But
yes. There it is.
By the way, I'm back in the A all day on that one. Yeah. I think Arizona's going to win that game fairly easily, to be honest.
What's your score?
I'm going to go 27-17. I'm back in the A to a 10-point win.
All right. I'm sure Jacob Franklin has a different outcome in that matchup.
Well, he's got to say that, though. I actually mean it.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Oh, you actually mean it.
I actually mean
it. All right.
All right. But everybody out there, we will be back with you tomorrow about 5, maybe 5:15. Again, really appreciate all of you guys. This was a very Native Cat 87. This was a very blue collar chat right here. We like blue collar around here. So again, really appreciate you guys all. Oh, Ricky Garrett right here. I like this one. 70-7, Arizona back the A.
If that happens, Ricky Garrett is paying for the Arizona billboards that will be up on I-10 for an entire year.
We are paying. Everybody out here is paying for it, and we're going to put courtesy of Ricky Garrett on there. So, again, appreciate all of you, though. We will be back with you tomorrow. For everybody out there, I'm Mike Luke. That's John Schuster. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats postgame show, brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. We'll talk to you tomorrow.